I've been writing this sermon. I have so much to say, so much I want to convey. In a year in which our Jewish faith has been denigrated by others, in a year in which the largest mass murder of Jews since the Holocaust took place, in a year where a hate campaign was waged against me because I stood up for our faith and our community, in a year in which the moral math of the world was turned on its head, I guess I want to begin by saying Shana Tova doesn't describe the year that has passed, but I sure hope it describes the year ahead. You might think that what I have to say on this Rosh Hashanah is about Israel or about Shir HaMa'alot, and of course it is in part, but I encourage you to read between the lines, or rather listen between the lines, because in the end it's about me and you as individuals, as Jews, as people part of Jewish families, and how we should not feel any shame in defending ourselves against those who would do us harm. I also want to apologize at the outset. I rarely speak in the first person in my sermons, but I do so today because I imagine some of what I felt this year, particularly the heaviness, is similar to what you have felt. And so sharing it aloud with you may be of some help as we navigate the year to come together. One of those feelings is simply this. Since October 2023, it's been the hardest year of my life as a Jew, 56 years, and the hardest year as a rabbi starting my 30th year. To be Jewish, and at the same time, I've never felt so Jewish, so proud to be Jewish, so connected to my Jewish community as I have been this year. Boy, do we need each other. As most of you know, we're named Shir HaMa'alot. Prior to that being our name, we were Harbor Reformed Temple. In 1974, exactly 50 years ago, there was a terrible terrorist attack in the city of Ma'alot in Israel, in which 23 Israeli students were murdered. Rabbi King, our founding rabbi, may his memory be a blessing, and the board of trustees decided to change the name of the synagogue to Shir HaMa'alot as a living tribute to those students. Shir means song, Ma'alot means ascent. So we are a song of ascent. Many decades ago, Rabbi King had a dream in which he was in conversation with those murdered teens. They said to him in the dream as he wrote, "We are members of Shir HaMa'alot in a way that goes deeper than membership. We are every child that will begin to learn a Hebrew letter in your home. We're every child consecrated under your outstretched talus of love. We are your bar and bat mitzvah children, your youth groups. We are that part of your grown-ups that remain forever young, forever innocent. We are the 23 youth who stand before you, for whom your congregation is named. We will support your pillars and uphold your foundation." In that small classroom in the city of Ma'alot in 1974, we were herded as terrified sheep and led to a painful screaming slaughter. He continues, "But in the place where orange trees once blossomed in America, you became us. You became the song of Ma'alot that has been changing our tears into sounds of joy. You became our unwrinkled hands that had so much to share. And now we share through yours. We are the children of Ma'alot who never returned from a field trip. Yet you, by your dedication to our memories, are every day, our every hour, returning us safely home to you." I, Rabbi Rick Steinberg, am here to tell you today, we will never abandon those teenagers from 50 years ago, and we will not forget those brutally taken from us 1 year ago on October 7th, 2023. What a half a century it has been. What a year it has been. One of our members posted a statement that has been reverberating in my heart for months now. She said, "I've never mourned so hard for people I never met." Well, we may have never met the 1,200 who died on October 7th, but they are family. They are us, just like the children of Ma'alot are. We are them. Their deaths, while senseless, will not be in vain. Congregation Shem Alot is a congregation dedicated to Judaism, Jews in this country and Jews all over the world, of course, and all humanity. And of course, the Jewish homeland we call Israel. You have heard me say all year long that the best defense is a strong offense. As your rabbi, I believe the very best thing we can do is celebrate our faith fully and with vigor. All the haters and terrorists want are not only for Jews to be no more, but for Judaism to be no more. And the wish is not going to happen on our watch. No way. Celebrating Shabbat, coming to services, sending your children for their Jewish education. This is how we fight back. This is how we bring light in the midst of a horribly dark time. But you've heard that message that the best defense is a good offense already. Today, I want to turn the statement around and talk about defense. We're doing a great job on offense, but we Jews, American Jews particularly, are reticent to speak of defending ourselves. As a minority throughout history, we have minded our place and our space. We were ghettoized. We were the victims of pogroms, of inquisitions, of the Crusaders, of the Romans and the Babylonians, and worst of all, the Nazis. Imagine for a second, just for 1 second, had Israel in its current form existed 80 years ago, how Israel, on behalf of all Jews, would have saved those precious lives. Imagine what those 6 million people and their millions of children and grandchildren that were never born would have added to the world. My friends, 80 years ago is a blink in the span of history. If you don't think it can happen again, the only reason is because Israel exists for us. Her presence is our existential protection. And yet we're sheepish about talking about our defense. That somehow, some way, we're not entitled to stand up strong for ourselves in a world filled with so much hate. We are always quick to explain the nuances, in nuanced terms, the issues of the Middle East, because it is nuanced. But being able to defend our faith and our people is not nuanced at all. It's black and white. I think what we often miss as American Jews is that Israel is defending us too. I can talk all day long about the virtues of Judaism and how its values are universal and so spot on for our world. But if there are no Jews, Judaism will cease to exist. Maybe you think that's hyperbolic, but 80 years is a blink in the span of time, and they tried to do it and almost succeeded. If you take away one message today, let it be this. There's no shame. There is no shame in being able to defend oneself, particularly for the universal values that our faith preaches. There's no shame in being able to stand up to the bullies of the world, the terrorists, whose values are rooted in hate and destruction instead of love and peace. Find me a prayer in this prayer book. Find me a prayer that speaks of hate and destruction. Instead, you can't. You cannot. Search the Torah for hate, and the only thing on hate you'll find is the mitzvah, you shall not hate. Our values and our people are worth defending. There's no shame in it. But friends, what concerns me is that it appears that many nations on the face of the earth seem to have a right to defend themselves. Rather, all nations seem to have a right to defend themselves, but not Israel, not the Jewish people. I've never heard of someone say to the United States, don't win the war all the way, just 60%, even though your enemies are on your border and bent on your destruction. Don't defeat those who want to destroy you all the way. Leave a few pointing guns at you. Golda Meir said it best. The world hates a Jew that hits back. The world only loves us when we are to be pitied. No more, friends. No more. Israel and the Jewish people are at war with those who are bent on our destruction. Now is the time to say, no way. It's not going to happen. Israel is our best defense against history repeating itself. Let me pause and give all the caveats. And they're not lip service. They're truly what I believe. But I'll say this first. Israel and the Jewish people have the right to defend themselves, ourselves. Hard stop, period. But because we are an ethical people, we must prosecute any war with ethics and morality. Of course, it's hard to do when you're fighting people who don't hold the same values. But we must, as we're commanded to be an Am Kodesh, a holy people. Thus, we must act with sanctity, even when we must use force to defend ourselves. In this regard, I believe the Israel Defense Forces is the most moral army on the face of the earth. Why? Because they have moral authority. Moral authority in this context only comes when one's authority is challenged and questioned and checked. Here are questions that help us determine who has such ethics at their core, such moral authority, and who does not. Are leaders freely elected? Is there a free press to challenge the government? Are people allowed to protest without consequence to their freedom? Are wayward and criminal soldiers held to account for their bad acts? Check yes for all for Israel. Check no for all for Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, and their minions, all enemies of the Jewish people. Just because the enemies have no morality, this does not negate the responsibility of Israel and the Jewish people to be exercising its ethics even in war to the highest degree. Even more, as I have said publicly many times, the loss of any innocent life is one loss too many. That includes, by the way, which never gets mentioned by the other side, Jewish innocent lives. Hostages waiting to be freed who are summarily shot in the back of the head as they hear the footsteps of their saviors. And they're shot only for one reason, because they're Jewish. The pain of the loss of innocent lives includes thousands of Gazans whose so-called leaders hide in their homes, hospitals, and schools with their weapon caches and rocket launchers. They care nothing for the lives of their own people. But I do, we do, and we should. There are those who criticize the leaders of Israel for the execution of the war. Thank God we can. If you protested in Gaza or Iran, something else would happen to you. You'd be silenced one way or another. Criticism in a democracy is welcomed, but many in the world are not just criticizing the government of Israel, they're denying even its right to exist. I would no more call for the end of America or its legitimacy because I did not like this president or that one, and the same holds true for Israel. People should criticize Israel's leaders all they want, but suggesting or advocating for Israel not to exist as a Jewish state is not right. Unless, of course, one calls for the end of Saudi Arabia being a Muslim nation or the Vatican being a Catholic nation. But if the only nation state one believes shouldn't exist is Israel, such an idea makes that person an anti-Semite. And sadly, many in the world feel this way. And yet, even with those caveats and explanations, I don't know other nations or peoples that do such self-reflecting as does the Jewish state and the Jewish people. It's exactly what makes us ethical. Here's the bottom line. Jews, through Israel and through our own hard work in the world, have power today. Power in this context means a way to defend oneself against his or her enemies. Rabbi Yitz Greenberg, in an article written in the 1990s entitled "The Ethics of Jewish Power is Still Ever Relevant Today," wrote, "Power corrupts, but there's no other moral tolerable choice. The alternative is death. This is the lesson the Jewish people learned from the Holocaust." He continues, "But the issue of the moral cost of power has grown ever more pressing over the past few decades. The widespread sense that Jews must hold themselves to a higher standard of ethics has increasingly come into conflict with the morally compromising situations that Israel has entered. Says the Talmud, those who are merciful to people who deserve cruelty will end up being cruel to people who deserve mercy. Often the punishment for failure to take reality into account is to do the opposite of what was intended. In the 1930s, an underground religious group considered assassinating Hitler, but decided against it on grounds there was no moral right to kill a bad leader. The millions of Innocent victims of Hitler's later murderous war on the Jews and others could well claim that the righteousness of the German underground paved the way for the cruel, sadistic war on them. What has become crystal clear to me this year is that the world doesn't like Jewish people who have power. October 7th was not an attack perpetrated by Israel. This was a murderous atrocity carried out by a sociopathic cult called Hamas, the rulers of the Gaza Strip. By the way, they've been the rulers of the Gaza Strip for almost 20 years. It dumbfounds me that our dead were not buried yet, and people were protesting on October 8th all over the world against Israel. I've never been good at math, but the moral math here is completely clear to me. Jewish people get attacked. The math should then add up to the world coming to Israel's defense, and many did, or at the very least allowing Israel to defend itself so as to ensure it doesn't happen again. Again, I'm not great at math, but this equation is clear. So why the protests on October 8th? Why the continued calls for Israel's destruction and demise? Why all the hate against Israel and the Jews? It's called anti-Semitism. I will never fully understand the reasons behind such hatred, because here's what I know about our people and about our faith. In the book of Deuteronomy, the constitution for the people entering the Holy Land, Moses is instructed that before he can go to war, he must offer peace to his enemies first. Ki tikrav el ir lehilachem aleha, vekarata aleha leshalom. When you approach a town to attack it, you shall first offer it terms of peace. Time and again, Israel has done so with Egypt, with Jordan, the Abraham Accords. Every time peace is a viable option, Israel seizes the moment. It's built into our DNA. But peace is not what our enemies want. They are bent on the end of Jews and Judaism. And I'm not just talking about the Middle East. Come to an Irvine City Council meeting and you can see anti-Semitism in living color. Rewriting history, denigrating Jews is happening in the classrooms of our universities, in ethnic studies in high schools, and they're teaching such narratives as fact. You all remember earlier this year at a congressional panel on anti-Semitism, one Ivy League president was asked if calling for the genocide of Jews is against the code of conduct of the university. The president of the university said, "It is a context-dependent decision." What is the context? Dead Jews? Is that really the context? Are you kidding me? I heard from dozens of our students, some who are here, who were harassed and bullied because one reason they needed police escorts to get from one place to another because they were Jewish sitting in a Hillel house. When a Jewish student needs a police escort on campus, anti-Semitism is real. Friends, there's no shame in defending ourselves against the hate that is out there. Yes, a good defense is a strong offense, but we still need a good defense. I spend a great deal of my time making sure our synagogue is safe and secure. But I rather spend my time solely on offense, and does the defense take up an inordinate amount of time and expense? Yes, but it is the world in which we live, and I'm not ashamed about defending our synagogue and our faith one bit. As many of you know, there was an attempt this year at the Orange County Human Relations Commission, on which I have sat for 15 years, to take me down and remove me from the commission because of my support for Israel and for my vote against rewriting the narrative of October 7th. What the haters missed, and what they always miss, is that they do not realize that I also support the idea of a Palestinian people should have a free state where they live and are safe. But when those who refuse to denounce Hamas and their murderous ways and chant from the river to the sea, calling for the annihilation of the Jewish people, are saying these things in public meetings, I will not stand idly by, because they don't want peace for both peoples. They only want it for their people. They're not interested in discussion. If so, they would have realized that I'm a straight shooter, and I would have done everything in my power to find a way forward. But when there's an organized campaign against me, with dozens upon dozens of people whom I have never met, who showed up at public meetings and called me a murderer and a thug, a rapist and a genocidal maniac, it makes it very hard to sit down with such people. And just for the record, I'm none of those things. When they malign my reputation my running joke was this. Listen, people, you don't know me well enough not to like me. If you knew me, you wouldn't like me, but you don't know me well enough not to like me. When they malign my reputation on social media and in the printed press, it gives me pause if I want to be in conversation with such people. And even worse, when the bystanders in the anti-hate community did not stand up, when people I have worked with for 15 years did not say, "That's not the Rick Steinberg I know," it gave me even greater pause about whom I was surrounding myself with. And the pause told me that it has nothing to do with Rick. It has everything to do with the title rabbi and the last name Steinberg, both pretty good Jewish indicators. And that is what they hate. They hate the Jew who dares take a stance different than theirs, and they'll do everything to destroy such a person as opposed to sit down and find a solution with that person. There's something about being Jewish and defending my faith and my holy land with my words and actions that made not only the haters hate, but the bystanders do nothing. Are the bystanders afraid that if they stand with the Jews, that will reflect poorly on them? If so, shame is on them. Are they afraid that if they stand with the Jews, they will face the same fate? Then they are cowards. People who fight hate, except if it's hate against Jews, pierces the Jewish heart, my heart, in ways I have not even begun to fully process yet. To note, the evangelical community, the Mormon community, the AME community of Irvine, and the Roman Catholic community all stood up and spoke out, as did dozens and dozens of our own temple members. Never have I been so touched. They were all upstanders. What happened to me happens in the Middle East every day. My little experience is nothing compared to what our brothers and sisters are facing every single day, and theirs is about life and death. Back to the moral math for a moment. How does a group kill more than 1,200 people on one day, take 240 hostages, and then make demands on what they will accept as a ceasefire or not? Who the hell do they think they are? They have no moral authority at all, and yet the world seems to think they do. This too pierces the Jewish heart, my heart, in ways I have not even begun to fully process yet. What's so clear to me again is that the world doesn't like Jews to have power. Well, we do, and we're not giving it up. We promise to always use such power for good. As Rabbi Greenberg wrote, the beginning of ethical wisdom is the recognition that in an unredeemed world, one must be able and willing to exercise power to protect or advance the good. Israel and the Jewish people have produced so much good for the world, for all peoples. You all have cell phones, right? You can thank the Israelis. But here's the cycle of history for us. We give to the world, we get attacked, we survive, then we thrive, then we give back to the world again. And when we get attacked again, we do the same thing all over again. We survive, we thrive, and we give back. The difference is now that every attack will have a response, and there's no shame in being a strong people who can defend themselves. Our ethics and our morality as people demand we continue to make the world better, even in the face of an attack. We will give back no matter how much they come at us, because that's who we are. Truth be told, as you can probably tell from this sermon, October 7th changed me. I'm still basically a pacifist, believe it or not, even after this sermon, because I don't understand what wars really achieve. But I now understand that I'm able to say such a thing because there's a Jewish army that would defend me or save me if, God forbid, I needed it. We've kept the promise of Rabbi King's dream. We are the song of the children of Ma'alot. They are part of us. We will not forget those lost this year. They will forever remain in our hearts. They live on in us, not to mention those still being held hostage. Our offense in celebrating our faith is magical, joyous, and filled with hope. And let us also remember that we must defend such values with everything we have. We will do so with ethics and morality. But when we need to defend ourselves, we will do so. Make no mistake about it. Jews, Judaism, and our identity are worth defending, and there's no shame in doing so. Amen.